Well, it was announced yesterday the nominees for the 2025 College Football Hall of Fame class and a star-studded group.
Wow.
So much so, there was a list of guys that I was like, wait, he's not in the Hall of Fame already? But headlining the group was Nick Saban, arguably the GOAT, if you look at his record and what he's done between his time spent at LSU in particular and Alabama. And obviously Coach Urban Meyer, who's won national championships, Two different spots, obviously incredibly difficult to do, and in 2 different conferences. And by the way, in 2 different eras. I think that's something else you have to draw attention to is both these coaches were able to navigate what was the BCS, now the college football playoff, and there's something to be said for being able to figure out a way of molding your team to withstand the path to be able to get there to win a national championship. But countless players as well. My guy, Mark Ingram, the first ever Heisman Trophy winner for the University of Alabama. How about this, though?
That.
Yeah, like that was one of the things that I remember when talking to Mark. I'm like, man, of all the great players, I was like, you were the first. Like, how cool is that?
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's like, for a story, program like that, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. But Ken Dorsey was on this list, and I was like, wait a second, how is Ken not already in? With all the success they had during the U, Sean Taylor is on this list. How is Sean Taylor not already in? I mean, you start going down the list, and this is something that you are a college football Hall of Famer, so you're in it. But when you look at it, you tend to forget there's so many schools, there's players, coaches, all of it, but it's a very difficult group to be a part of when it's all said and done.
It is, man. I mean, for my school, you think about Kijana Carter. How is he not in?
Yeah.
Courtney Brown, how is he not in? I just, so you start to see the names that pop up. And this one is 100% a star-studded list of characters on this one. I mean, man, looking at Takeo Spikes is on that list. There's just a lot of guys. Herman Moore, he's on the list.
Right.
I mean, there's just –
some of your newer age players, Aaron Donald's on that list.
Aaron Donald, yeah. Yep. So
I
don't know.
Randall, there's a couple of Indiana football players, which I thought was interesting. Antoine Randall L., who is a slash-type player.
He was really good, man.
A ton of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, look, we got a couple Notre Dame guys on there. Todd Light, who I'm like, why is he not in yet? He should be in.
I played with Todd Light.
There you go. Manti Te'o, who was arguably one of the best defensive players in Notre Dame history, I think he will eventually go in. And a contemporary and a guy who I love, James Laurinaitis out of Ohio State, a 3-time. I don't know if it's all unanimous, consensus All-American, but how many guys have that on their resume? Just an absolute stud.
Yeah.
So, and again, like I look at James's resume, and I look at my brother-in-law's. I'm like, well, eventually AJ is going to get in, right? Because he's got very similar accolades when you look at what he built up over his time at Ohio State. So.
I can't see how AJ Hawk or James Laurinaitis wouldn't get in. And first of all, I'll say this because for me, it took a long-ass time. For me, in fact, I thought I didn't get in. You remember the year I got in? I was like, man, did I miss it? Like, I don't know. I didn't know, but it's being on the other side of it. It's quite an accomplishment, and it's exciting when you see the type of people that are the recipients of getting in and getting that honor. And I mean, in basketball, it's weird because, I mean, at least weird for me. It's pro and college. So all you had to do was have a great college career and you could be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And vice versa. You could have a great pro career and not have had a great college career, and you go to the same Hall of Fame as somebody that went to college. But in this one, it's very unique because it is just college and pro is just pro. And so there are plenty of guys that are talented enough and have been gifted enough and blessed enough to be able to do it on both levels. But for you to be able to make it into that hallowed ground in college, I just, it's quite an accomplishment. It's such a great feeling. And I wish all those guys luck and wish them all well. But yeah, I think guys like A.J. Hawk and Laurinaitis, I mean, they're the reason why you talk about linebackers in the Big Ten, right?
Right.
Those are the types of names that are in our long lineage and our heritage of what we have represented as linebackers in the Big Ten. Because to me, I think that's the one. You can look at other conferences, and I get it, but there's nothing like vintage Big Ten linebackers, man. There's just something about them, and those two names that you named, those are two big names in the long line in the history of linebackers in the 10. So yeah.
Another big name who will be a part of this class, I assume, is a guy like Aaron Donald, who to me should be a surefire. And that's one of the things I want to draw attention to is I think a lot of these guys will get in. In regards to the timing of it and how it all works, that's obviously above me. But I think the committee that decides this, which is what the National Football Foundation, if I'm not mistaken, they've got a tough task. I mean, you're weighing coaches, you're weighing players, you're weighing so many different things in different eras, and on top of that, you've got different divisions at times too that you're looking at in regards to the players. So it's not an easy task for the selection committee. There's obviously a rich tradition and history in college football where you've got great players from so many different places that are typically up for this every single year. But congratulations to all those nominees. It is a true honor. We will be seeing some of these players join LaVar Arrington.
Yeah.
Being immortalized in college football history, being in the Hall of Fame at some point. I'm just hoping we get one Notre Dame guy in there. And it's not, and I hope it's – I wish it could be both. I hope it is both.
Eventually get you in there, man.
Well, there's certain things that you got to check off, which, like, the hard thing for me is the years I was an All-American, I lost out to Heisman Trophy winners or someone else. But I got a couple Player of the Year awards, so we'll see.
As long as you were an All-American, man. And it was like one time. It's like one time consensus or unanimous or something to that effect. I forget what the criteria of it is, but I feel like you got good enough accolades to have made it in. So I mean, I was a two-time All-American. That was it. Like I didn't, I wasn't an All-American 3 times or.
Well, and really, you only have to be one time.
Right.
There's players who have been able to only have one great year, and they're able to get in off that one great year. Sometimes that's all it takes. But that will be
historical moments. So
yes, that's right.
You did.
That's right. So anyway, it's a great list of players. It's again surprising that some of those names on there, like the Ken Dorsey one, was the one that surprised me the most, only because I remember growing up through that time and watching Ken and then getting the chance to play with him and getting to know him and talking about those times. I mean, their team was uber talented, but he was, kind of the orchestrator, the brains behind, everything that was going on offensively. He was so far ahead of his time. It's one of the reasons why he's gotten into coaching and why he's now, calling plays for the Browns. He obviously was with the Bills. Maybe that's not the best, highlight the way it worked out, but nonetheless, he's continually gotten opportunities because he is a very, very sharp offensive mind. But it's a tremendous accomplishment and accolade, and I would say it's more competitive than I think people realize. Mm-hmm. When you put it up, obviously against the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and you're looking at how many guys are able to get into that, there's similarities in the difficulty of just being able to be one that passes.
Way more people. It's way more people, and it's like the percentage is like 0.022222% of all college athletes are able to get into the College Football Hall of Fame. So it's it's difficult, man. It is difficult, and again, like I said, if I'm just using me, I just went in not too long ago. And that was, I feel like I had a pretty solid resume to have gone in. But there's also criteria, I guess, that were governing it when I was coming out as well, which was, I believe back in the day, you had to have your degree in order to get in. And I didn't have a degree. I had left early to go into to the draft. So that had maybe played a part for a lot of guys that maybe didn't get in early, and then you start getting circulated. I had never even been nominated to be in, and so.
Well, and I think that's part of it too. Is there tends to be push behind the scenes from schools, from sometimes media companies to make these sorts of things happen. And I think that's maybe what helps motivate it a little bit, too, to get some players who have been waiting a little while that should be an in. I think it just takes a little push, a little shove, just one little application, if you will. But hopefully guys from past generations, older generations, like a Matt Cavanaugh, for example, who played quarterback at Pitt, very deserving. As far as being in it, I already spoke for Todd Light, who I'm again shocked and surprised he's not in yet, based on his accomplishments and everything he did at Notre Dame. So I hope they look at it and they say, let's take care of some of the older guys, knowing that hopefully these younger guys will be around. And as far as how they look at the not only nomination process, but getting some of these guys in, at least that's how I would look at it, because they're all worthy of it. It's just a matter of time. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah. It just takes a long time sometimes for this one right here. And I don't know what the right or wrong answer to it is, because, again, there be like we mentioned with this whole, these are just nominees that we're throwing out there.
Right.
You got Urban Meyer and Nick Saban on a nominees list, the same one for college football. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that's just, that's
I think
just how
it's
it
interesting
goes.
as you look through the list, too, when you look at a guy like Dallas Clark, who, kind of changed the way we see tight ends, how they're split out, how they're utilized. He was one of the first guys in the early 2000s, that was that kind of player. And he ended up being that in the NFL. It kind of led to everything else. Or what about Willie Gault? I mean, one of the fastest players in the history of the NFL, a player who was a first-team All-American. You look at what he was able to do as far as a special teams player, and maybe that's more what they're angling at in regards to him. But like Mike Vick is a part of this list. I mean, how is Mike Vick not in? like you look at some of these names, you're just going, none of this makes sense, man. I mean, I go through it and I say it's a stiff competition when you pick out different players. I mean, Marshawn Lynch, Deshaun Jackson, so many great players that are part of this list. So congratulations to all those players. Kellen Moore, by the way, quarterback for Boise State. Haloti Ngata, who is just an absolute game wrecker. By the way, how about Ken Norton Jr.? There's another one as far as a linebacker.
I can't believe that. Just now? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Chris Samuels at Alabama as far as attack. I mean, there's so many names who are a part of this list. Taylor Stubblefield, who is a really productive wide receiver. I witnessed that. I know the pro career wasn't the same, but you want to go back and look at his college accolades. It's absolutely ridiculous. Eric Weddle. I mean, talk about quarterback on defense, game breaker. Peter Warwick. I mean, all these are names that are on this list. It feels like whatever got released out there to the media wasn't quite as many as what is on the actual official list. I mean, Mike Huff, who was a defensive back at Texas during my era.
Tough.
He was about as good as it gets, man.
Yeah.
And so, again, a star-studded group. Owen Kreutz, who's a part of this list. I mean, I think anyone who knows him, he was one of the nastiest centers to have ever played college or pro, for that matter. So it'll be interesting to see who gets in, who doesn't. But, again, I hope they take care of some of the older guys to, allow them to have that opportunity to shine for all their accomplishments.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me, my guy.